How about now? Somebody throw in the comments if you can hear me now. I'll wait for a comment, but I'll keep talking. I'll start my little spiel over if you can hear me. I'm trying to run a different type of speaker. Okay, so I did hear in the comments that you can hear me. Technology. I'm trying to do something fun here and run two different cameras from the same place, and I guess I just learned what you can and cannot do. So let me go to just this camera. As you can see, I've got Jonelle Murphy with me here tonight, but I'm going to go through my little intro again since nobody heard it. So good evening. Welcome to our candidate spotlight for tonight. My name is Jimmy Malloy. I will be your host for the evening. Our goal tonight is to give you, the potential voter, an opportunity to be able to listen to in-depth questions being asked and ask questions yourself that you may want to hear from our candidate. So the format for tonight is going to be simple. The first half hour or so will be an interview conducted between me and Jonelle. I'll be asking questions designed to let you get to know the candidate and then dive into a few different issues. The second half hour is when it gets fun because that's where you get to get involved. And so we'll be asking questions that come from the comments section that are coming from you. So if you're not watching live, obviously you can't ask questions at this point, but we do have an opportunity for you to be able to connect with our candidate. We'll be sharing that with you in just a moment, and you'll be able to do that as well. But for those who are live, you can participate. I only have two rules when it comes to the questions that we're going to ask. First rule is let's keep it PG. We don't want anything that is profanity or vulgar in these questions. And the second thing is we would ask you to keep it respectful. So this isn't the place where we're going to come on and attack somebody or anything along those lines. We do encourage you to ask difficult questions, tough questions. That's totally on the table, but make sure it stays respectful. Those are my two rules. Outside of that, basically anything goes. So go ahead and drop your questions in the comments. I didn't mention, but you can put them in there whenever. If you have a question right now and you know what it is, go ahead and throw it in there. If during the course of our conversation you realize, hey, I'd like to know more about that, or a question just pops into my mind that says, I'd like to ask this question, just throw it in there and we will get to it. I promise you that. It should be noted that every active candidate for a VUSD board position has been invited to participate in these candidate spotlights. As of right now, there have only been 4 who have accepted my offer. A couple of them you may have heard from already. Paul Belt from Area 2 was Thursday, September 29th. Last night, actually, we interviewed Jesse Perez from Area 1. It was a good interview. You can check that out on Facebook. Tonight, obviously, we've got Jonelle Murphy from Area 6. That should be popping up on your screen here in just a second. There it is. So Jonelle is tonight. And then the final interview that we currently have scheduled is Crystal Reynolds, who will be here on Thursday, joining me live for this interview. And that'll be Thursday, October 6th at 7 o'clock. Like I said, the interviews that have already happened, you can find on our YouTube page. Just go in there. You can see videos that have been uploaded, and you'll find both of those there. So Jonelle is here, and she's like, I'm sitting here awkwardly in Jimmy's intro, so I apologize for that. I thought I had the technical side of it figured out a little better than that. But you're running in Area 6, correct?
Yes.
So Area 6, I'm going to just put up here on the screen. Area 6 is basically right in the middle of Visalia, isn't it? So
it's a pretty small area.
Yeah, as far as geographically, there's not a whole lot of space in there.
No.
Some of those, like District Area 2 and Area 1, or Area 4, those things are huge. But what we see here is pretty much the center of Visalia. You've got that Riverway Sports Park kind of at the north end of your...
It's all north of 198.
So everything's north of 198,
kind
of in the middle. You can see everything that's in yellow there is Area 6. So you can take a look at that and say, hey, that's where I live, or that's where my mom lives, or that's where some friends live. Then you'll know these are the people eligible to vote for Jonelle. So all of that being said, I guess the last thing I'll say is I did mention that everybody has been invited to participate in this. Only 4 have accepted the invitation. If you see this format and you're like, hey, that's pretty cool, I'd love to hear this same type of interview with the other candidates, I would encourage you to reach out to them and just say, hey, why don't you accept Jimmy's invitation? We would love to see you interviewed like this. So if you like what you see, go ahead and reach out. Whether or not they will remains to be seen, but so far only 4 have accepted. All right.
And it does say Area 1 on the...
Oh, dang, I didn't switch that. Area 1 is supposed to be Area 6. Dang, I'm sorry, Jonelle. I let you down. So we'll throw that disclaimer on the little frame that you see right here. That should be Area 6. There it is. Area 6, not Area 1. That's what happens when you copy and just try to change things and you're in a hurry because you're coming home from work, right? Okay, let's get started. So, Jonelle, first of all, thank you for joining us. And thank you for adjusting, because we were having some technical issues the last couple nights. And, you came to our house, which is awesome. We're grateful for that. But why don't we start, just take a few minutes, if you will, and introduce yourself to the audience. Who is Jonelle Murphy?
So I am a stay-at-home mom of 2 young boys. I have a first grader, and I have one hopefully going to start preschool soon, hopefully. I have been a stay-at-home mom since I had my youngest, so it's been about 3-4 years.
Okay.
Before that, I was a heavy equipment operator with the operating engineers for 6 years. Before that, I did, various positions in management, inventory control. We moved to Visalia 2 years ago. I actually moved to Visalia for VUSD to put my kids in Visalia Unified. I grew up in the Clovis Unified School District, and getting a house there just wasn't going to work at the time. So I researched. My husband's from Visalia. I researched the schools. Visalia Unified was, really great from everything I read, especially, our particular school site. We moved here June of 2020, so it was right in the heart of COVID, and it was a mess. And with my oldest, starting school, kindergarten, and not being allowed on campus, it was really hard for me. I feel like I haven't had a voice this whole time, even up until currently. And so that's why I'm here.
Yeah. So your first experience with your oldest son was right in the heart of COVID, like during the lockdown period where it was supposed to be on Zoom and all that stuff.
So he actually,
with a kindergartner.
He actually started in Fresno Unified right before we moved. It was February of 2020. And then they shut down school like a month later.
Wow.
And so then we moved to Visalia. And when we started preschool here, it was Zoom until I think he went back like towards the end of the year, preschool. Okay. But yeah, not being able to go in the classroom, it was really hard. He's my firstborn.
Yeah.
We look forward to that moment, and I got robbed.
Sure. Yeah, I know I've talked to several people who have experienced that from the younger side. Our kids are older, right? So we got to experience like the high school, junior high aspect of that, but we didn't get that perspective.
Yeah, that's hard too, just different.
In a different way. But I can imagine when you're kindergartner, their first introduction into school is COVID. And then if you're trying to work with the teachers and you're trying to figure this all out and you feel like you're being stonewalled or you're not allowed on campus to participate and all of those types of things, I can imagine it would be very frustrating.
Yes, to say the least.
Yeah. So you've been pretty open about being a political newcomer. Like this isn't your cup of tea. It's not, something you probably have been dreaming about for years or anything, right?
Never would have dreamed.
So you've been pretty open about that you're not in it for personal gain. You're not trying to use this as a political stepping stone. So why are you running for school board?
So like I said before, I'm familiar with Clovis Unified. That's the only, knowledge I have for school districts. I researched Visalia, and I had high expectations when we moved here, and they were not reached, I guess. Yeah. So I know that Visalia has the potential to do great. I see it, I've read lots of good things about the district, but currently I don't see any actions, going that direction. And also, the parents are kind of being blocked out. Even still, I don't feel like that communication is there. The transparency is there. So yeah, I think Visalia Unify could do great things. We just need the right changes.
Okay, fair enough. So now you've expressed frustration that speaking to the current board is like speaking to a wall. I think that was an exact quote.
Yes.
You said, quote, "It's like speaking to a wall."
Mm-hmm.
So in your opinion, what role do parents or grandparents or community
Mm-hmm.
members, but what role do parents have in public education?
Well, there are kids, and we know what works best for our kids. The district, I feel like they should be taking input and listening to the parents in order to know what the correct steps would be to take for our kids. All districts are different. All of California is not the same. Even all of, Tulare County might be the same from school site to school site. So, yeah, I think that they need to engage with the parents and the community a lot more and actually listen, not just, or I should act on it, not just listen, because that's all they do if they do that.
Yeah. So if you're elected, and obviously you see this as a big problem right now, what kind of things do you think you would like to do personally to make sure that the voters, the parents, the people who voted you in there feel not only heard, but they actually feel like they have some sort of a say in what's going on in the district? What kind of change would you like to bring in that area?
Well, I think communication would be the first thing. The fact that when you go speak at a board meeting, during public comment, the board is supposedly, I don't know if it's like a rule, but they can't engage with questions or responses, which I think is kind of silly. I would get like maybe not after each individual person, but maybe at the end kind of briefly discuss it and then maybe like reach out to those parents after, which that doesn't even happen. I know VUSD just got a new communications department. That would be maybe a good thing that they could do. Social media is huge. Communication should be easy, but they got to really work on showing that they're listening to what the community's saying.
So would you commit to, if Jonelle Murphy is elected, you're sitting on that dais, where the board members sit, people are asking you questions, or maybe they're sending you emails or calling or whatever. Would you commit at this point to saying, I'm going to answer all the parents who are reaching out to me?
I've been in that position of not getting email responses back, and it's very irritating.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely that's the board member's job is, they have an email address to be reached.
Yeah.
It should be a two-way street, not just a one-way street.
Okay. So I was thinking about this the other day, and if I'm putting together a board of any kind, whether it's a school board, maybe it's a business board, a church board, nonprofit, whatever it is, you have a board of directors, a board of advisors or trustees in this case. What I'm looking for, whether it's 5 or 7 or 10 people, I want to see a variety, right, of perspective, a variety of experience, even a variety of opinions and stuff along those lines, because at that point you get to, hear from multiple perspectives and actually arrive at the correct answer, right? So when thinking about what you would bring from a unique perspective, a unique experience level, what makes you unique that you feel like you would be bringing to the table to the VUSD board?
So a couple things is first, growing up, I did grow up poor. I grew up in a trailer park, but I, again, had the amazing opportunity. I was lucky enough to be in Clovis Unified, even though I was technically in Fresno. So I went Clovis Unified my whole school life. I got amazing opportunities. I participated in anything and everything I could because my home life wasn't, I didn't get those chances at home. So being involved in a great district, it was amazing. I got to try all kinds of new things. I had all these different dreams. I ended up, my adult career, I did my work history is all over the place, but my schooling, they really got me excited for, going out into the world and doing all these new things. So, I guess that would be, my perspective on it is the big part that the schools really have in these kids' lives.
So if you grew up in a district that was not good, or didn't do very well reaching kids like you, your life would probably be quite a bit different.
Oh, yes.
So you're the product of a top-notch, high-quality school district, and you're literally an example of what can happen when you have a good education. Because we talk a lot about, and we hear a lot about equity, we hear a lot about inclusion, diversity, like all of that kind of stuff, and sometimes that's related to race, or it's related to socioeconomic status, or any of those type of things. But that's literally the perspective that you're bringing in, as somebody who maybe shouldn't have done so well, but because they were so connected to a great school district, you succeeded. So that's amazing. That's a great story, and I think that is definitely a unique perspective to anything that we currently have on the board. Wow, that's good. I didn't know that about you.
Yep.
That's cool. So your opponent, Dr. Randy Villegas, he's a political science professor at COS. You've obviously gotten to kind of see how he has acted or not acted or whatever on the board. So what is it that he specifically has done or not done that makes you think it's time for a change?
Well, first off, I hope this doesn't offend anybody, but I feel that anybody that is involved on the board and making decisions for all these children, I think it's important that they have raised a child, currently have raised one, years ago or whatever, but you don't really truly understand what it is to raise a child unless you've done it. And, as far as I know, I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think he has kids. So it's hard, well, I would say it's probably easy for him to make these decisions because he doesn't have kids in the district. He doesn't know what it's like to raise kids. And, recently, I'm sure everybody's heard about the drag show. He did donate money to that publicly. Things like that. I don't think somebody should be doing, in that position publicly, especially when it involves kids.
So to contrast in that, you have two kids, one of whom is in the district and one is about to be, right? So you've got a vested interest in this. The decisions that you would make will directly impact your kids today.
Yes.
So that's motive. Is that kind of what you're saying? Like you have a direct motivation to make the right decisions, whereas somebody who doesn't have kids, or even I suppose somebody who maybe has kids that have grown out of the district, don't have quite that same perspective, right? As what you do.
Yeah, but even kids, people who have kids that are, grown, they still know what it's like, to have kids in the district and, different things that go on, within the school systems and such.
Right. Okay. So you mentioned this drag show, and there's been a lot of conversation about this. I know that the media, the newspapers and stuff have covered it a little bit, but the issue at hand for a lot of people, I think, was the fact that this was advertised on a high school campus, right? It was promoted to kids on a high school campus, and many people thought that was inappropriate. As a board member, if you were in that situation, what would your response to that be when you start hearing from the public that, hey, this happened on campus, and you're hearing that from your perspective? Like what would you maybe have done differently than what the board did in this situation?
Well, they did acknowledge it, and they did say that it was not approved. But my question would be, just by their responses, the people who set up that booth and were passing out the flyers, they did go through the office somehow and were able to check in on campus. So there's something going on there. But my question would have been, they keep saying it wasn't approved, but if they would have asked, would they have approved it? Because part of me kind of tells me that if they would have gone through the proper channels and asked permission, I personally think the board would have approved it. So I don't know, maybe If they kind of clarified it a little bit more and they weren't so short with their answers, that's kind of their motto, I guess, is just kind of
Their
short
MO.
and sweet, and
Sweep it under the rug.
don't
kind of
really
thing.
want to get in depth with anything.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So getting back to Dr. Villegas here, we talked about what maybe he's done or his perspective as opposed to yours. Why would you be a better choice at this point than Dr. Villegas for that seat?
Well, first, he wasn't elected. He was appointed. So I think that is enough. I think whoever is on the board should be elected by the people.
Yeah.
So, and he wasn't elected. I guess we'll find out this go around if the people will still vote for him.
Sure.
But yeah.
Okay.
I think it's not right that they get to just appoint.
Yeah. Well, and I suppose, like you said, this is the opportunity for the people to be able to speak with their votes, right? And so at the end of after November 8th, we'll know, what the people have decided. So as a school board trustee, you have a responsibility to a lot of different groups of people, right? Obviously, you have a responsibility to the people who elected you. You'll have a responsibility to the kids. You have a responsibility to teachers, but you also have a responsibility to agencies, things like, the Department of Education in Sacramento or the Department of Education from Washington, D.C. In fact, that's where the money comes from. Yeah. So some people would say that's your biggest responsibility. How do you see that as far as balancing the needs that would come down from Sacramento? Because obviously there's some stuff that's concerning, that's coming out of Sacramento or Washington. And then balancing that with the needs of the people that elected you or the kids or whatever. How do you look at, when those things come at odds, how do you think you'll approach that?
It's one of those things that, I don't have a lot of experience with as far as what the board can do. But I know, yes, there are a lot of concerning things coming down from the state and whatnot. I think that number one, as a board, we need to discuss and find out what is best for our schools, kind of the local control thing. There are legal ways to, I don't want to say not follow the rules, but, do the right thing despite what, the state or government is saying, yeah.
Yeah. So with that, you just mentioned doing the right thing. Doing the right thing is not always easy, right? No. And doing the right thing is, people view that differently. What someone else may view as the right thing might be different than what you do. So you have a personal conviction about what the right thing is. So when you have a board situation, and let's just hypothetically say that there's some policy or resolution out there on the table, and you're up there with 6 people that are saying the right thing is to do exactly the opposite of what you feel in your heart is the right thing. What do you do with that? How important is it to stand united as a board versus, holding true to what you believe is right?
I don't think standing united as a board should even be a thing. We're all up there for different reasons. We're, elected for that reason, to represent our own areas. And that's the whole point of voting, is it gives you the opportunity to have your own voice and have your own say in it. You don't have to just agree what everybody says, even if you're the one no vote. I mean, yeah, it may not do anything, but that doesn't mean you have to vote yes.
Right. So I've heard from, a couple of board members about certain resolutions that it was going to pass anyway. I don't agree with it, but since it was going to pass anyway, I went ahead and just voted yes. Would you do that?
No.
Not the way you're going to handle it?
No.
Okay. Fair enough. Let's see. Along those same lines, it'll be your job to craft and adopt various policies, right, for all sorts of different things for the district. Now, one of the challenges to policy making is that everybody has needs and rights. And sometimes those needs and rights will conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give you an example. When a policy is proposed that would allow a student to use the restroom or locker room that corresponds with their gender expression, you're faced with two sets of conflicting rights. You have the right of the transgender female
Mm-hmm.
to use the restroom of their choosing, and then you have the right of the biological female to be able to not share a locker room with biological males, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have two sets of rights that are at odds right there.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you approach a situation like that?
Well, you need to do what is right for the students. And in that case, there are ways to make both groups of people or whatever it may be comfortable. I don't think putting a transgender person into the other locker room or restroom, I think that's just going to cause more problems, and potentially make other students unsafe or uncomfortable or whatever. I don't think that solves anything.
Yeah. No. So, when you have conflicting rights, do you look at it like the rights of more people? Like, how
Yes.
do you, if you
the majority,
if you have a vast majority of people who,
if you have one or two people and then you have hundreds of people, well, I would say the majority.
Okay.
But there are ways to, I think, deal with both the right way.
Yeah.
Make everybody comfortable and safe.
Sure. So talking about safety, and we're right at 7:30, so I'm going to just pause for 1 second and say, if you do have comments, and I do see that there are a few in here, if you do have comments, I'd encourage you to go ahead and throw those in the questions for the comments, and we'll start getting these up in here. Well, I'm going to pause for my questions for a second, and we're going to get into questions. It looks like the first number of comments were, Jimmy, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. What's going on? But after that, and I'm going to put some of these up on the screen. This, I believe, is kind of a question. We'll address it real quick. So Joseph Beaton says, has anyone asked her opponent if he attends church? Do you know the answer to that one?
I have, I know very little about Randy. I think he's married with no kids. He's young. He's a doctor. I really don't know a lot about his personal life. I don't think our views and whatnot align. But I mean, he seems like a nice guy. But as far as church goes, I have no idea.
Hard to say, right? So let's move into another one. This one is from Melissa Brewer. Hi, Melissa. She asked, Jonelle, what will voters gain from you as their trustee that they don't get from the current sitting trustee in your area?
Well, I think at this point, with only the two of us running, as a voter, you're either going to vote for more of the same or you're going to vote for change. So I think a vote for change would be a vote in the right direction.
So what do you think that change looks like specifically for you? Like, what's not happening today, or what is happening today that would be different with Jonelle on the board?
I don't think that the current board is listening to parents and community input. I think they're just following up above, just following what maybe the teachers union is telling them to do, what the state is telling them to do, what the superintendent is telling them to do. I'm not sure because I'm not there. That's why I'm running. I want to know what's going on behind closed doors that apparently they can't tell us. But yeah.
So there's a word that gets thrown around out there. It's kind of a buzzword that they use, and they call it stakeholders, right? And they'll talk about, all of our different stakeholders in the school district. And that's kind of the people we've talked about, right? You have the student, obviously, is one of the huge stakeholders. The teachers are stakeholders because that's their employer and where they work and all this. The community would be a stakeholder, obviously, the superintendent and his staff and the board members and all that. Do you feel like the parent and family stakeholder is being properly represented when it comes to the decision making that's happening? No. Okay. Why do you say that?
I again, I don't feel like I've been heard at any of the meetings. I've brought up things at the last couple board meetings with no response, things that I think are really important. Yeah, I don't feel like they're listening at all. They're just, I don't know what they're doing.
Okay. So let's talk about that. You mentioned your experience at the board meetings recently. So I know that you have voiced your concern about the danger of fentanyl specifically. And that was something I think 2 board meetings ago, right? You brought to their attention. And you can fill in the blanks here, but I believe there was an issue in Bakersfield that kind of sparked the question from several people. But you actually brought it to the board. Can you tell us about what it was, why you felt the need to speak up, and maybe what's happened since?
Well, in Bakersfield, recently, I think it was I don't even think it was high school. I think it was junior high. Brought fentanyl to school.
So a student brought it on campus?
A student brought it on campus. Okay. A staff member just opened it just to see, I guess, what it was. And just from smelling it, he overdosed.
Wow.
And there's a on-campus police officer who was able to administer Narcan, which is a life-saving drug in case of an overdose. So my concern is, a lot of the surrounding districts I looked up, I think it was Fresno Unified and Central Unified and Clovis Unified, Bakersfield, obviously, they've all put out, things all over, their websites. They've had I'm trying to think of the word.
Like their communications team is putting things out.
Yeah, but they've also linked it to, I think it was Clovis Unified. They had at the city did something, put on I can't think of the word, anyways, they held a meeting, I guess, for the community and went over all the dangers of fentanyl and, whatever that meeting entailed, but things like that. The district was getting involved in making sure parents knew the dangers and, what it is. And they've also equipped each school site with Narcan and make sure that there is a trained staff member at each site that is able to administer it just in case. And as I know, I brought it up at the last 2 meetings and just crickets. I haven't heard anything. They haven't added it to the agenda. They haven't put out any communications about it with their new communications department. And I want to say that I heard that somebody had emailed them about it and they're going to bring it up in a couple weeks, probably right before the election. So I'm not really sure, what the whole story is, or if that is the case, why they would want to wait. Like it's an issue now. Why wait on something like that? I'm not really sure. So yeah, it's another one of those things. Like I just don't really understand until I'm hopefully on the board, and I could really see what's the holdup. Why can't something so important and so easily communicated or accessed? Why is it taking so long?
So did I hear you say that you actually asked them to make it an agenda item and speak to it?
Yes.
And that was a few weeks ago?
That was 2 board meetings ago.
2 board meetings
ago.
So
I went to it this past board meeting. I knew it wasn't on the agenda. So I brought it up again, but.
And then nothing. So this is kind of what you were talking about earlier, where there's an issue that's important to parents. And of course, this is directly impacting you and your family, right? You've got kids who are, at least your oldest is going to school in Visalia Unified. I'm sure even just as a parent, you want to know that he's safe if something like that happens. So at this point right now, do you know the answer to that question, whether there's Narcan on each campus?
So I think the police officers that are on campus, I believe, carry it. But the issue with that is there's not always an officer on campus, especially, I don't know, there might be one always on high school campuses. I'm not sure, but elementary, I know they have rotating officers. So there's not always an officer on campus. I'm sure the threat of it at the elementary level is probably not as big as the high school level, but still, like, it's a free, Visalia Unified has been offered the Narcan for free. So, like, I don't know what the holdup is. It's free. You just have to train, the school nurse or somebody that's always going to be on campus.
Right.
To me, it's an easy fix. Use your communications team, put out something for the parents to read.
And in all fairness, they may already have that in place, but then the question becomes,
why can't you just tell us that?
Yeah.
I don't know if any of that is on campus. I have only heard, through the grapevine, all the information I just said, because I can't, the district hasn't put out any to, confirm or not.
No answers at all. Yeah. And this is a common complaint that I hear from a lot of parents, is that they do voice concerns. They do have questions. And the common response is almost like, we got it. Don't worry about it. Like, you don't need to, you just go back to doing what you do, go to work, go to raise your kids, like the school side of it. We have. Is that the right way for, is that the right way for a school to deal with their parents?
No.
Yeah. Interesting. So along those same lines, hang on, I'm just looking through comments real quick. I think some people are fired up about fentanyl. That's what I'm seeing right now. So, okay, here's another question. Just while we're on this topic, we're just going to write it out here. So, Jonelle, this is from Joseph Beaton again. Hi, Joseph. Why do you, Jonelle, think the board is silent on the topic of fentanyl as they wait 5 weeks for the public health department to address the topic? Do you have any thoughts as to why they're just silent?
See, that's where the 5 weeks, I don't know if somebody emailed, I think that's what happened. Somebody emailed Mr. Shrum, and somehow the 5 weeks came up. I could only think of one reason why they would wait that long, and it would be elections. Because I don't see any reason why you should wait. After we brought it up, because I wasn't the only one that brought it up at the board meeting 2 meetings ago, it should have been addressed the following morning. So there's no excuse why they should wait.
At least with an answer, right?
Something.
So whatever it is. So I mean, if you drop the ball on this and you need to get better at it, just say that, right?
Yeah, something.
And say that, we're working on this diligently and we're going to get this resolved.
Acknowledge that it was even brought up.
Sure. I got you. I just realized that I did not put your contact info along the bottom, or maybe I did and it came back. But if you want to contact Jonelle, here's some contact info. She's active on Instagram and Facebook. And are you more Instagram, more Facebook? What do you prefer?
I prefer Instagram, but I find more people are active on Facebook. So it's probably, a safe bet either way. Yeah.
So either way, that's a great a way for you to get a hold. We've got her handles on here. Also, if you need to get in touch and you are not able to for some reason, you can always reach out to us. We can get you in touch with Jonelle. But I'm going to keep that ticker along the bottom so that y'all can have that information as we go. So in keeping with the topic of safety, right? So there's fentanyl. Obviously, that's a huge issue. Hundreds of thousands of people each year right now are dying. It's getting worse because more and more of it's coming across the border and from China and all that stuff. They're even putting it, I saw the other day, in in candy. Like the Nerds boxes or Skittles or something like that. It's insane, right? So it's going to become a bigger problem, not a lesser problem. But along with school safety, there's, at least in my lifetime and probably yours, I've never heard more parents concerned about sending their kids to school and it being safe, right? So fentanyl is one issue. You have fights and you have bullying, you have gang activity, you've got active shooter situations. I mean, we all see in the news that you have active shooter situations, all that. So as a trustee, as somebody who would be on the board, what can be done, do you think, on the local level to ensure parents that it is safe to send their kids to the schools?
I think I'm pretty sure all the school sites are fenced in, Is that accurate?
Probably so at this point.
When I was going to school, none of my schools were fenced in, so that's all new to me.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure they're all fenced in. But I do think that maybe they need to be more stringent in who they allow on campus. Going back to the drag show flyers, they had to go through some proper steps, and they did check in at the office, so that's good. But they didn't go through all the steps, so it makes you wonder, like, what else are they missing? Who else is getting on campus without going through the proper steps? I am all for armed guards. I think that should be at every school site, especially, whenever there's any sort of big events going on. Fighting has been a big thing that I'm starting to learn. I didn't realize it was such a big deal. I think I remember one high school fight in my whole 4 years of high school. So that's new to me. Again, my kids are young, so I don't really know a lot that happens in the high schools. But that is an issue. I feel like I hear about a new fight every week.
Yeah.
So there needs to be some accountability. I know years ago it was like a hot Cheetos method. I think that was that Otto that did that policy?
You have to fill me in on that one. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah. So whenever students were acting out, they'd get sent to the counselor, and they would just offer them hot Cheetos, I guess, to behave right, or
okay.
I don't know.
So it's kind of an incentive sort of thing.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So there has to be some accountability. You can't just ignore it and then expect for it to get any better.
Yeah. So are you in favor of, like, if you look at the amount of accountability that seems to be on campuses right now, would you want to increase things like suspensions and expulsions? Or do you think we need less of those and we offer things like hot Cheetos?
I think if that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. I mean, obviously that would be a last resort. I think it's very important to keep all kids in school on campus, but, maybe not as a, first resort,
right?
But as a last resort, absolutely. If that's what it takes, maybe students will start to learn, like, hey, I don't want to get suspended like that person.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So we have a question kind of along those lines. This one, again, is from Melissa Brewer. She said, Jonelle, how did you feel about Superintendent Schrumm's downplaying of the violent attack on a student at Divisadero? Does VUSD have a safety issue?
Absolutely. Yeah, he did downplay it, and it was kind of hard to watch. Something like that should never be downplayed. He tried to make it say it wasn't a big issue. It never happens. But it is happening. And because of social media, it's out for everybody to see. He did downplay that too, at that board meeting. And I think it was the one before, they had mentioned, the presence of social media and how much more drama it causes, or how it makes those situations worse. And I know that they don't like speaking about anything that happens on social media, but then they turn around and, oh, look at our social media and look at everything that's going on. So they're kind of being hypocrites, I think, when it comes to that. And downplaying it, again, is not going to get you anywhere,
So I guess, and we may want to back up for the benefit of those who don't know what we're talking about, right? So there was a student at Divisadero, there was a student that was basically, I wouldn't even call it a fight. It was more like assaulted.
An attack, yeah.
Right? So this student was assaulted. From my understanding, it did start on social media with threats, and then this person carried out the threat, and it was on video. Someone recorded it. And it was basically just the poor girl didn't even ever have a chance to face her attacker, right? It was just an attack from behind, an assault. And then what happened was, when it was addressed at the board meeting, there was kind of a, kids will be kids. Kids are always going to fight since the dawn of time. Kids will fight, which is true, right? Kids always fight. But social media does have a dark side. And, that part of that dark side is, even talking about other school issues, people issuing threats to shoot up a school, for example, or threats to a person, hey, I'm going to come beat the snot out of you tomorrow or something. That sort of stuff starts out on social media a lot of times, and then recording these things and posting it and letting it go viral. I know here in Tulare on one of the junior high campuses at one point, they actually had a fight club where they would go out on, at lunch or something, and the kids would just, do these fights and stuff. And it was entirely for the social media attention that they could get. And so I think that there is a social media aspect that definitely can't be ignored, right?
Yeah.
You have to address that stuff. But that's kind of what happened in this situation. And it almost, I know a lot of people felt like it was kind of swept under the rug and just, kids will be kids and we're dealing with it internally. So I guess, even back to her second part of this question, do you think VUSD does have a safety issue?
Yes. Yeah. And as far as like the phones and social media, I think it was Buchanan, one of Fresno Unified, they start having the kids lock up their phones in little bags.
Yeah.
I'm all for that. I think cell phones have no place. I mean, obviously to have them somewhere close to you, just in case of an emergency, but like keeping them in the classroom, but locked away.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea, and it might eliminate, I mean, I guess if they have it at lunch or whatever, you can't stop that. But
Right.
I think that would help a lot. That they don't have access to that social media all day, every day. But yeah, it is an issue, and I don't think it's going to change until, something's done about it and those students are, removed from campus or something.
Held accountable in some way. So increasing accountability for situations like that, where somebody, obviously it's premeditated.
Yeah.
If you're announcing that you're going to do it on social media and then you go out and carry out an attack like that, it's not even just getting in a fight.
It's not like you just get in an argument right there on the spot and then start fighting. Like these, like you said, they're premeditated. And
yeah, for sure. Very good. So I'm going to keep going with a couple questions that I have. We've got about 9 minutes left or so. So if you are there waiting in the background and you're thinking, you know what, I have this question, I'm not sure if I should ask it. There's no dumb questions, right? There's only dumb people who ask questions. I'm just kidding. That's not it. There's no stupid questions. But if you have one, go ahead and ask it. So we're now seeing the impacts, the long-term impacts that the COVID pandemic and the COVID response have had on both students and teachers and really all of us, right? So I guess I have a couple parts to this question. One is, what can be done now at this point to address this? And what would you, as a board trustee, do differently if we were to find ourselves in a similar situation in the future?
Well, I would never threaten a teacher to take away her credentials, or, I think that was awful that the teachers were being put through that and being told, oh, if you don't do what I say, or, don't stand up for yourself, then we're just going to take away your credentials and the district's going to get sued and we're going to lose our whole district altogether. I think it was a lot of blowing smoke that was unnecessary. And I think it scared a lot of teachers. I think we lost a lot of teachers because of that. I would never want to be a teacher during COVID. My son had speech issues. He was at that young age, preschool, when COVID started, and wearing the mask was awful, totally detrimental to his speech. Especially at that age in kindergarten too, he had to wear it. So I think that, as a board, you have to find that happy medium where you're still listening to, any laws or mandates or whatever, but also do what's right for our kids. There's no going back on what's already been done. Unfortunately.
Right.
I think they did not handle it well. There were other districts in the state that handled it much better. I think I got a little off track.
No,
there.
it's okay.
But,
keep going.
Yeah, I think there's ways to do the right thing. and still listen to your community and what is needed in your community and follow the rules at the same time.
So you mentioned just now about other districts in the state, for example, who made decisions that kind of went against the guidance or the mandates or whatever that came down from Sacramento. Would you see yourself using people outside of the district as a resource to maybe talk to them about it?
Absolutely. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Okay.
If that's what's best for the kids, or, you know, for the district, you know, the tampon dispensers in the boys' bathroom. I'm sorry, but that's a waste of money, waste of time and effort. And it just brings up a lot more questions than it does help anybody. You know, and I've talked to other districts, other parents in other districts, and, you know, there are schools that are still following the rules, and, you know, being supportive for those students, if there are any of those students that would utilize that, without, you know, these ridiculous why.
Well, I've heard that the junior high boys in a lot of these districts are having a field day with those tampons.
Oh, yeah.
They're loving it.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's creating a mess for the custodial crew.
Yeah.
And all of that. But yeah, I mean, statistically, you might have one or two transgender students in an entire district, if that, right?
So why does it need to be in every school?
That's a good question.
But I also feel like I actually talked to Mr. Shrum about this and voiced my concern over how the teachers are being coached to respond to questions that might come about from that. Let's say the elementary level, especially the younger kids, they're not going to know what that is.
Right.
Even a lot of the girls might not be familiar with what that is. So what happens when a boy goes and asks his teacher, hey, what is this? You know, those teachers need to be prepared to answer those questions in a way that maybe they're not answering it, you know, to how to respond to that question without saying something that maybe the parents wouldn't agree with. But I don't think that's happening, you know, so it worries me, you know, what other problems, things like that's going to cause just because the state said to do it.
Right. So a lot of the stuff that seems to be coming down from the state and from Washington, whatever side of the political aisle you're on, I don't think it's a secret. There's a lot of the politics being played in schools, right? So you have people with political ideas and ambitions and stuff who are pressing things into the schools. And, you know, you can use tampon dispensers in boys' bathrooms as an example, or some of the stuff like comprehensive sexual education. There's a lot of concern about critical race theory, even the social emotional learning that's going on in all the schools right now. There's a lot of concern about where that leads politically. One of the questions that was in here that I want to come back to is, and I don't want to not give someone credit for this question, should politics of any kind be allowed in the classroom?
Other than teaching it in like political science class, no.
So like civics, like learning about government and that kind of stuff.
But as far as like teachers or staff voicing their political views or you know, lifestyle choices even, no, that has no place in the school. I guess
So do you fall in the line of it should be reading, writing, and arithmetic kind of stuff that's in schools, not so much, you know, your opinions on world events
no.
or any
Honestly, when I was in school, I mean, history was not my forte. I read history and it just but anyways, I don't remember being involved in any politics or anything in high school, or hearing about it, or hearing, you know, any adults in my life talk about it. Like, it just wasn't something that was geared towards children. You know, maybe as a senior in high school, you know, as you're an adult and you're becoming voting age, that might change.
Yeah.
But anything younger than that, it has no place.
Gotcha. So I want to, and we have one more question, but I'm going to ask, well, let's do this question first, and then I have one other question I want to ask you before we wrap up. So this comes from Cheryl, it looks like Salka, and if I said that incorrectly, I apologize. Don't hate me forever. But she asked, would you be willing to bring up at board meetings how other schools are successful with safety and accountability, student behavior at VUSD, and we just lost a couple of our lights. So if it's dark, it's because it's October. How about that? How other schools are successful with safety and accountability, student behavior in VUSD has become worse than prior years.
Yeah. Looking to other districts, why not? If they're doing something that's working for them, why not reach out to them and figure out what it is that they're doing that's helping?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Obviously, what we're doing isn't working. What was the second part of that? Become worse. I do think the social media has a lot to do with it. COVID and, the kids being home and the whole school just totally got disrupted in how the schools operate and easing back into it. These poor kids, I can't even imagine what it is like at any grade level.
Sure.
I can't even imagine.
So the answer really is yes.
Yes. Absolutely.
You definitely would want to utilize other districts as resources.
Yes.
Good. Okay. So let's talk about teachers for a minute. Recently, there was an opportunity to go to the Visalia Unified Teachers Association, which is the local teachers union, VUDA is what they call themselves. They offered an opportunity for the candidates to apply and interview for their endorsement. Now, did you take them up on that?
I did not.
You did not. Can I ask why?
With all of this going on, I feel like the teachers union, I think they were the ones making the threats for the teachers losing credentials. And I don't think that they handled it well. I don't think that they made choices that were the right choices for our students. And I didn't want to, I guess, be associated with them. As a board member, I am here for the teachers, and obviously I'm advocating for parent engagement, but also teacher engagement, community engagement. I think all of those are important. We all have an impact on the kids. The teachers union, not so much. I support teachers. I don't support the teachers union, and I don't want my name associated with some of the choices that they made during COVID.
So as a result of, there were you and there were a few others that chose not to pursue that endorsement. And as a result, I know that there's been some conversation in teachers' lounges and other places saying that labeling you guys basically as teacher haters and people who are not supportive. And I think that there are some teachers that would look at that as maybe a slight or even a slap in the face, saying that, hey, this is the group that represents us, and you're saying that you don't want anything to do with them. Is that a slap in the face to teachers? From what you just said, I don't see that as being why you did it, but can you see where somebody would think that, and what would you say to that person?
I could see that, but at the same time, if I hated teachers, I would homeschool my kids. If I hated the district, I would homeschool my kids. If I didn't see potential in the district, I would homeschool my kids. I think teachers have a very hard job. I could never do it. I give them all the props in the world. And with my experience with the teachers at my son's school, they've all been amazing. The whole staff, all the staff has been amazing. But yeah, it's just the teachers union, just specifically the union, not the teachers that are within the union.
Do you think that COVID kind of exposed unions for some of the motivations maybe that they had that were not as pure as maybe what teachers think they are?
Oh yeah, I think COVID exposed a lot of people
in
that aspect.
Yeah, that's true. There was a big light shined on a lot of people. But I remember some of the stories that you're talking about, stuff like teachers unions really pressing on the schools to stay closed longer, for example, pushing for vaccine mandates on kids and for, just even some of the stuff that we were talking about earlier. So, yeah, I think that there was definitely kind of a light shined on that kind of stuff. So you're saying that, there's kind of a line there in your mind between the union and the actual rank and file teachers.
Yeah. And I've been part of a union. I was part of the operating engineer, so I know how unions work. So it's not even that I'm against all unions, just this teachers union, from what I experienced, I am new to the district, so it's only been a couple years, but within those 2 years, what I've seen said and done by the teachers union here, I don't think that they handled it well. And I don't think that they represented the students. I think they represented their own best interests and their own behinds and not the kids and the parents and the teachers even.
Yeah, fair enough. So do you have anything else that you wanted to say to people who might be watching live or people who may be watching later? Was there any final thoughts that you wanted to give, or a final plug for your campaign or anything like that?
You're either going to vote for more of the same, or you could vote for change. And I will, if I get elected, I will do my best to speak, for the students and for the parents and the community and the teachers and staff.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for being here, for joining us, for doing this candidate spotlight. And I just want to remind everybody that you can see this later. You can share it with your friends if you just go to our YouTube page at Unmasked Tulare County, and you can share these things with anybody who may be in Area 6 that might want to hear what Jonelle had to say and how she answered some of these questions. So I want to say at this point that we appreciate you all being with us, and we'll catch you on the next one. Just a reminder, 2 reminders actually. One is that we will have Crystal Reynolds from Area 4 on with us Thursday night. But if you do want to have a chance to go and see all of the candidates together asking questions, there is a live event, and it's just short notice, so I apologize. But tomorrow night, Tuesday night, the Chamber of Commerce and the Sun, or who is it?
The Sun Gazette.
The Sun Gazette, that one, is putting on a candidate forum where they'll have an opportunity to ask questions to all the candidates from all the areas. It's going to be held at the 210 Cafe tomorrow from 5 to 7. If you do want to participate, you do have to get tickets. Now, there's no cost to the tickets, but you do have to get registered. So you can go to the Visalia Chamber of Commerce website, find their candidate forum, and go ahead and get your tickets. So again, that's tomorrow night from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. But if you can't make that one, be sure that you're with us Thursday at 7. We'll have Crystal Reynolds on, and it'll be a great time. Once again, thank you to my guest, Jonelle.
Thank you.
And we will catch you all next time. Bye now.